Everybody. Welcome to our 2023 Spring Local Election Candidates Forum for the Village of McFarland. This is for a village trustee position for the McFarland Village Board. My name is Matt Schenke. I'm village administrator for the village and will serve as a moderator for today's event. This is an opportunity for candidates such as yourselves to discuss a wide range of topics important to you in this community and a chance for voters to get to know more about you. We're excited to have you here today, and a special thank you to the Communications Technology Department for broadcasting this event. You're available to watch live on the McFarland cable channel, as well as stream on our YouTube channel, as well as through the McFarland Cable's website as well, for those that are interested in watching. Additionally, this is being recorded so that if you are not able to watch it at this time, you can watch it later at your convenience for those that may be interested. As a reminder, just in general, Election Day is right around the corner, Tuesday, April 4th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. in this very room, community room at the Municipal Center. By mail voting will begin this Tuesday, March 14th, and in-person absentee will begin a week later on March 21st. Please consult the village website at www.mcfarland.wi.us/elections for more information. So for today's event, each candidate will be provided an opportunity to introduce themselves before we begin the questions portion of the event. There are 8 questions in all that will be asked of the candidates that we have prepared. After the 8 questions are complete, we'll allow for audience questions and candidates to provide answers for the near the end of the forum. At the conclusion of that process, each candidate will provide a chance to offer their closing remarks. And for each of the different sections, introduction, questions, and closing, we will afford 2 minutes time. We're going to go in order of ballot placement, which is Stephanie Brasington was first on the ballot, Lowell Prill is second, Luke Fessler is third, and Hillary Brandt is fourth. You're all in order. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie Miller, for doing that. We will start in this order for the introduction and move to the second person, third person, so on, and proceed through the question. So just a few more disclaimers before we get started here. We encourage attendees and viewers to submit questions to the candidates. For our live at-home viewers, please submit questions to www.mcfarland.wi.us/candidate questions, or scan the QR code found on the screen that you see right now. Staff will do their best to allow for live questions during the forum, so I cannot guarantee they will be asked. For those who are here in person, you may also submit online or by using the note cards that are under your chair with the pens that are provided. The questions you submit should be issue-based and will be reviewed before asking the candidates. We will not accept questions that may be targeted towards only one candidate, appear to be partisan, vulgar, inappropriate, etc. Please note, if necessary, we are working to limit our time here to about 2 hours. Closing marks will start about 12:50 from wherever we're at that point. Any questions from 4 of you before we get started? Awesome. Well, Stephanie, you're first up. Please provide an introduction. Tell us about yourself, background, education, other items of relevance for us to get to know you better.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for moderating. And again, thank you to Communications and Technology and Stephanie Miller's team for setting up the room and broadcasting and making everything perfect for today. Again, I am Stephanie Brasington. I have lived in McFarland for a long time. I have a long history here. Our family moved here in 1969. I graduated from McFarland High School in 1983, so I have a long history of this being my home. This is our community. This is where I raised my family and where I'm raising my grandchildren at this time as well. So I believe that giving back to our community is an important component to being in a community, and I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to have the time, and it fits into my life now where I can do that to the best of my ability. So I am honored to have served on the village board for the last 8 years, and I look forward to more. I am excited and proud of the history that and all that we've accomplished in those years, and I'm pretty proud of that. And it's an exciting time in McFarland. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Lowell?
My name is Lowell Prill, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to partake in this forum. My wife passed away 8 years ago, and I decided to move to McFarland, where to be near family. We have 2 daughters and their families here. I enjoy attending the McFarland school events and the sports, and spending time walking around the neighborhoods and seeing the neighborhoods and the different people. Back in the community where I lived, I was on the school board for 18 years, on the village town board where I lived, township board, for 8 years, and Marine Park Technical College for 9 years. So I've had quite a bit of board service, and I bring that to the community and to the board. I'm a senior, and so I bring that perspective to the board, and I just feel that McFarland is a great community, and it's got so many things to offer: the schools, the parks, the walking trails. It's a very nice community, and I'm glad to be here. And I just wanted to be run for my candidacy for the village board, to give back to the community and to serve the people, and look towards the future, because McFarland is on the move, and we're moving forward, and that's great. So once again, I just say thank you.
Thank you. Luke?
Hi, I'm Luke Fessler. I've lived in this community in and around for the last 20 years. My wife and I were fortunate to find McFarland as we moved into a new neighborhood across Sigelcow, and it quickly became a place that we wanted to live, and now that we want to work. So I currently work from home for a company in Madison. My wife works here at a small business in McFarland. We're raising our 2 kids, going to McFarland schools. We'll have 2 high schoolers next year, which is kind of crazy. I've been involved at various levels of government since high school and public service, just wanting to volunteer, reach out. Homeowners Association, excuse me, volunteered with kids' sports, or basketball, football, softball. So when I had the opportunity and I saw that there was a board seat open, I thought, this is something that I would like to do. I'd like to jump in and give back. I've been part of the Parks and Rec committee for the past year, and having that experience and understanding where the board is going and where the village is going has been a really eye-opening experience, how much we're growing and how much we're moving forward. And I would love to be a part of that and to help plan and shape how we're going to do that. Thank you.
I'm Hillary Brandt. I'm currently a village board trustee. I was appointed in August of 2022. I'm a former middle-level educator of 15 years, so I feel like I bring a different aspect, not running for school board, running for village board. And my husband owns a business, so I also have that ownership, that small business mindset, knowing what other community members that own small businesses have to go through. And so community development is something that's really important to me. I have a 5-year-old son that is currently in 4K, and we are in an open transracial adoption. So his birth parents are very much a part of our lives. So I have another perspective that I bring to that. I grew up in Dane County, in Madison, and my family still owns, I think they started Horse and Buggy, 2 transportation companies, one that is union, one that is not union. So I've seen different aspects of how businesses are run and things of that since I was a very little child. And we are currently building a home in McFarland, so we're definitely staying here. We're not going anywhere else. Let's see. Oh, I currently am a fitness coach for a small boutique fitness center in Madison. So I care about health and wellness of our community. And I started here as Brad helped start the DEI committee, and I was on the committee from the start. So that was kind of how I got my foot in the door with the village. And I'm now mentoring at the middle school, so trying to give back to the community. Thank you.
Nice, thank you. Lowell, you're up with the next question. First question, what interested you about running for local office?
Well, like I said before, I've had the experience on various boards, and I enjoy being part of involved in the community and the decision-making processes, whether it's a school board, town board, or even a technical college board, which they're all different. But McFarland is growing, and that's what we have to keep in mind, and have to look to the future as far as decision-making and what that all involves as far as the growth. I think that's one of the big issues. And then there's the different committees. I've been watching virtually the different committees, and I have interest in several of those. And I just believe that's my philosophy. I just want to give back to the community.
Luke?
Yeah, I think, growth is really important, right? It feels like we're at a giant pivot point for McFarland and where we're taking off right now and how much growth and how quickly it's happening. And that's part of why I wanted to be on the board. I want the growth to be strategic, right? We've got the East Side neighborhood plan that's coming together. We have the new public safety center. We have potentially new uses for the building that we're in right now, a senior center. There's so much in front of us that we can do to help the people in this community, and I would like to be a part of that.
Yeah. Hillary?
I am running for local office. First of all, I have learned so much. It is humbling, to say the least. This is not an easy job at all. I believe that bringing the community's voices into this space is very important. And we have a very educated staff. So it's not that the trustees need to have their own ideas or their own educational backgrounds based on government. It's more making sure that the community is being heard and making sure that it is an easy and welcoming place to do that. I think sometimes it can be very intimidating sitting in front of a board, and I want to change that. I want the language of open communication. If you come to a meeting, that you're welcomed, that we want to hear what you have to say. This is your community, and I just want to make sure that I elevate voices that aren't able to have this position. Maybe they don't have the time. Maybe they don't have the commitment to being able to take time off of their job. So financially, they can't be here, but I want to be able to make sure that their voices are being heard, and that we all work collaboratively together. I think that's really important. And I just want to make sure that we're growing in the right direction, but also being fiscally responsible as well. Thank you.
Stephanie?
When I started this journey as a write-in candidate, my process or my thoughts were that I wanted to, we needed an inclusive park. I have 2 autistic grandchildren, and I wanted to find a safe park, a place where they could feel welcome and feel safe. Our kids love to play at the park that's at the library here, but from a special needs perspective, it's a very dangerous park because it's surrounded by 3 roads and a parking lot, so it's not a very safe place for kids with special needs to play. Easy access for if you're a parent with special needs, but that's always been something that's I've wanted to have for the whole time that I've been on the village board, as well as a community center. My parents are both passed now, but at the time they we were looking for access and places for them to get resources. I was not their IT source, even though they thought I was. I wanted them to have some resources available to them, and I thought a community center would be a perfect place for them to get some of those answers and some of those resources to them. This clearly has been a journey over the last 8 years, and I have learned so much. I now I run for those very same reasons, as well as the fact that there is so much development and so much change in McFarland, and I'm just excited to be a part of it all. And I feel like I represent a good demographic of people who have been in McFarland for a very long time, that may struggle sometimes with embracing change, because this is what we've known, this is how we've been, and I think it's important to represent that demographic and accept some of those changes and see how it can improve our community.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Next question. Luke, what's exciting about joining the village board as a trustee?
I think some of the exciting things about joining the village board, right, is, again, just being able to be involved in the planning that's going on right now. For example, not just the things that I previously mentioned, but, you know, we are working on a 5-year plan. We're working on a 10-year plan to understand and talk with the community and figure out where do we want to go and where do we want to take this. And that's exciting to me, like understanding what people want to do and then helping to shape that and really put that roadmap in place. You know, working with the people on the board, the current makeup of the board, I think is also exciting. There's a diverse set of opinions. There's a diverse set of viewpoints. Some of the meetings are very interesting to be a part of and to watch. And I think that is also, that's good for McFarland, right? The more voices, the more opinions you get, the better well-rounded ideas you're able to put together.
Hillary?
What excites me most about joining the village board? I think for me, the most exciting part is to make sure that we continue to collaborate well together, not only as, you know, a municipality, but bringing in the school system. I think that we could really be a model for other municipalities in Dane County and show how school districts and villages or townships can really work together and be a force for the future of McFarland, and just make sure that we're collaborating and getting things done efficiently and effectively. I'm also very excited about the possibility of our community center and what that looks like, what the needs are of our community members, and how to make sure that we're reaching everyone, that it's not just for the young families, that we're thinking about our senior citizens, that we're thinking about just all encompassing McFarland as a whole. A lot of times, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the attention, but I, as a village board trustee, would like to make sure that I'm reaching out to people and not expecting people to always reach out to me. I think that is something that lends itself to actually serving your community, not waiting for people to come to you, but you doing it yourself. And I'm also very excited about the fact that we do have the only net zero public safety center in the state of Wisconsin, and making sure that our residents understand that and know how great that is for our environment and how much McFarland is really, really committed to the sustainability of our environment. Thank you.
Stephanie?
Well, other than leaving your house and staying out till 11 o'clock at night in a meeting, that's pretty exciting. But actually, I think the most exciting part of it is watching things come to fruition. And I have that advantage of being on the board for so long. We've talked about things, and then you see them concept plans, and you see them develop, and then you see them being built, and you see them being created. And I think that's the most exciting part of it. It takes a long time. It takes way longer than you think that it's going to happen, because once you get in, you realize things take time, and it's a process. So I think for me, the most exciting part is to actually see things happen and see that change happening and see the creative, the work that we've done to create our community to what it is today and what it will be in the future.
Lowell?
Well, planning is a very important thing. Long-range planning, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, that's very good, and that's what excites me is the planning. The planning that went into the new public safety center out there, that is just going to be a wow building. and now the planning that'll be going on for this building and the converting it and the renovations made here for a community center, that's exciting. And once again, it's all about planning and the future.
Thank you. Question 3, Hillary, we'll start with you. What are some things you would like to change or at least see done differently as a member of the village board?
Well, I mentioned briefly about making sure that people feel comfortable. And I feel like just in our last village board meeting, one of the things we were talking about were the village board trustee handbook. And one of the things I brought up was when we do have anyone in the room that would like to make a comment, the verbiage of what the chairperson would read is, I don't want to say off-putting, but it's scary. The language can be very intimidating, and if you don't speak right away, then you've lost your opportunity. And we're not trying to trick anyone. We really want people to be heard, and I think we've even started making a change in that. In my last meeting that I chaired, the language did look different, and so just making sure that it is welcoming enough, that the communication is there. I understand that we've got, our social media outlets to help with communication, but I think that it should be something that as a board we say, we do want to hear your voice, and not just say it, but what are we doing to make that happen? More public forums, more informational meetings, different ways, and listening. How can we make it more inviting for those people? Everyone needs to be heard. That is the job of a village board trustee. We have, like I said, we have a great staff that is very educated and very, very well versed in everything that needs to be done to run McFarland very well. And they do a great job. So we really need to make sure we're just listening and making it inviting and easy for people to be heard. That's really important to me. So that's something I would really like to see changed. And I think we're moving in the right direction.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I would like to see, we've made a lot of changes actually, and a lot of really positive changes in our committee structure and how we, when our board packets come out, when we review that, how we change our meeting schedules, everything. Additionally, I would like to make sure that we continue our efforts in communication within the village, and I think we're working on a communication plan. I also think that we should work on affordable housing for the village, a sustainable plan. I know that we're talking about that on the Finance Committee as well. And I'd also like us to see us incorporate DEI initiatives throughout all of our committees and in our staff and our government, everything.
Cool.
Well, not being a member of the board, I would just say that from what I've seen, change is always happening. It's happening with committees, it's happening with the board, and that's good. I believe that as we go forward, communication is a real issue, that it has to be out there, meeting the public, having meetings, and bringing that input back to the board at meetings.
Yeah, I think also communications is one of the biggest things I'd like to see change. There is this concept of, in order to really get through to people, you need to communicate 7 different times, 7 different ways. And that after a while, that can sound like beating somebody over the head, but honestly, if somebody's telling me, please stop, I know, that means we've gotten through, so maybe that's a good thing, right? So I think communication, how we can reach out to the community in using different outlets, trying to be creative on how we're planning to get people here and what we're doing in order to have the right meetings and the right topics for people to be interested in and get to these meetings. And then also, I would love to see a more formal diversity and belonging requirement or aspect to all major decisions in the village. Something that we go through and make sure that we're at least looking at it through that lens before we make any major financial decisions to understand what impact it could have.
Good, thank you. Back to the beginning, Stephanie, question 4. What are your top 3 priorities if elected to this position?
I would say a park, a special needs park, inclusive park is important to me. I think that's something, I know there's works in the process. I would like to see that actually happen. I think that I would like to work on the community center, the campus concept and the library expansion. I would like to see those things actually happen, and work hard to get that. And I'd also like us to work on our diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives throughout the entire village.
Lowell?
Well, priorities. Well, number one, seeing this building and the possibilities here and what it could be as a community center, and the connection with the library right across the street, that's all very good for the community. And just wondering, back to the previous question about communications, how that can be improved. We've got virtual, the meetings and everything, but it's still the personal contact. And I think that's a priority, along with just the growth, keeping a close eye on the growth and where that's happening and what's happening. So that's my three.
Thank you. Lou?
So my top three, strategic growth. I mentioned the East Side neighborhood. I think we need to, again, take a look at that and make sure we're planning in affordable housing, as well as making a good small business plan for the neighborhoods out there, for the neighbors out there. And also communications, to do a better job of advertising the wins and the things that the board is doing, and to market the reasons why we want people involved in the things that we want their opinions on. And then more programming for the village. So the community center would be a big part of that, but also right now most of the programming in the village runs through MRAP, which is sponsored by the school, and they do a great job. However, there's not a real focus on adult and senior programming. They do have some, but I would like to see the village take on more responsibility in adding programming for the villagers.
Hillary?
I think I would say I've got three, and they all encompass sustainability. So I would say first, sustainability in our environment. Always thinking about ways that we can cut down emissions, cut down the use of electricity. How could we use solar power? What are ways we can support our community members in educating versus like salt use on your sidewalks? There are so many ways that we can work on sustainability environmentally, not only as a government entity, but also educating our citizens. Another thing that goes along with sustainability is sustainability of our community members, right? Having a happy life. So whether that means making sure that we have parks for all of our children, all of our people, making sure that people are able to stay healthy, using in exercise, making sure that DEI is definitely included in that, making sure people are feeling welcome and that they belong, and that the rest of our community has empathy and is encouraging everyone to have a seat at the table. And then finally, another way of sustainability is obviously financially. So I would like to make sure that we're really thinking about that community growth. So we've got the East Side Plan. So making sure that things are taking place so that we can create more revenue for our community, so that we don't have to always have taxes continuing to raise. So I would say sustainability as a whole, but again, environmentally, financially, and then obviously with our community members.
All right. Question 5. Lowell, we'll start with you. How do you feel about the pace of growth within our community in comparison to the services that we provide?
Well, with growth comes the need for more services. Both fire and police and village services are need to be expanded always with growth, and that has to be kept in mind. I'm a cost-conscious person, and I'm always thinking, wow, we're pretty well on the way with the new public safety center. And, the more growth there is, the more services are needed. So that has to be understood also. And then you have the issue of taxing and where does that go? So for growth is good, but also somewhat control is good. So I just want to share that point.
Luke?
Yeah, I think growth is important. The word I would attach to that is strategic growth, right? So understanding where and how, being able to plan far enough ahead that we're not only planning for the houses and the tax base that we want to bring in, but also the infrastructure and the wastewater and the roads and everything that we need in order to grow correctly. I think the pace of growth in McFarland has been swift over the last 10 years. I imagine it will continue to grow because we are a community where people want to live. We have great schools. We have great services already in town, and people want to move here, and it's going to grow our community. So I think our task will be to keep up with that to ensure that we're planning correctly for that growth.
I feel that the pace of our growth in McFarland is definitely sped up within the last few years. I think that we are doing our best to make sure that we are hearing the needs of our community members and that we are making strategic plans. I encourage anyone that is on the board or soon to be on the board that we continue to think about fiscal responsibility as well. There are a lot of things that people want in our community, but then they realize, oh, that does affect taxes. So definitely the fiscally responsible aspect of it is definitely important. But also, things cost money. So really being strategic about all of that is definitely important, and making sure that people are getting what they want. But also thinking about needs as well. What we want and what we need are always, separate. So really making some smart decisions and leaning on our great staff in the village to get us there.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I think, I think back when I think about growth in the village, and I think back at and I think a lot of people in the room will relate to this, that we were sitting at the table and we were talking about a community center, and our hopes were to look at some concept plans, and in that process, working with consultants and looking at where our police and fire were, we realized quickly that we can't do this community center right now. We've got a more serious problem in our growth. We didn't keep up the growth of our public safety. And in order to, for all the things that are happening in our village, we have to make that change. So I think we all sat there kind of stunned for a moment, like, this is completely different than what we set out to do. And now all of a sudden we have to pivot and we have to plan for our future. And the lesson that I learned in that is that in anything that we do as far as growth, we always have to be thinking about, what is this going to look like in 10 years, or what we're doing right now? What are we going to look at in 10 years, 20 years from now? Are we planning ahead? And again, there's a fine balance financially there as to what we can do and what things that we want to try and create to improve our community, but also to make it livable for everybody to stay here, to maintain our homes and the lifestyles that we want. So you have to balance that. So I look at our growth and I think about not only what we would like to have, but where are we going to be 10, 20 years from now? And boards well beyond all of us, what are they going to inherit that we give them for growth?
Good, thank you. All right, question 6. Luke, we'll start with you. How do you plan to involve residents within the decision-making process?
So I would like to be part of a study that the board conducts to understand how people best want to communicate within the village. I think that meeting people where they're at and where they want to be is the best way to get opinions from the residents. I currently am with my wife having kind of office hours, we call it, but at the cafe every Friday, just to try and meet more people, talk to them, understand their needs and what it is that they want from the village. I think those one-on-one, one-on-two conversations, those are really important to get the real ideas from people in how they want to communicate. So that's the biggest thing. I think that and putting down ideas once we have talked to people are very important. Putting down the ideas that are important to them, because we saw that with things like the pickleball courts and the skateboard park. We had lots of involvement from the community because it was something they were passionate about. They wanted to come talk to us and give us their ideas and their thoughts. So I think making sure that we're talking about things that people are passionate about is going to help us to bring them here and to have them share their ideas with us.
Thank you. Hillary?
I feel like a broken record about communication, but so we will be conducting a communication audit, and I think that will really lend itself to see where our holes are, where our gaps are, and also what residents would like to see. How would they like to be able to communicate? What is, we've got a varied range of residents, age range of residents, and so some more social media, and sometimes that can be beneficial, and sometimes it can take a negative negative turn. So how do we keep it positive? How do we keep it fresh and available, but also productive? And I think, again, bringing back the communication and collaboration with the school district, I think will always help involve residents. If we get that really good bond between the school district and the village, I think there are so many ways to touch other families throughout the use of this school district communication, so that we can involve more people. So I would say collaboration with the school district and continue that relationship, and then using that communication audit to help see where we're going to go with that and make sure that everyone is involved in the decision-making process.
Thank you. Stephanie?
It's a great question. It's a hard question. It doesn't have an easy answer. I think that first of all, we have to give ourselves some pat on the back for the things that we do, because I do believe that in some cases we do have we have a good infrastructure of ways that we communicate things with our social media, with our e-newsletters and our Outlook newsletters and things that we attempt to try and get information out to our residents. I am looking forward to our communications audit to see if there's any ideas or anything that we could do that we're missing. What we don't know is what we don't know right now. So I'm hoping that we can find some strategic ways to communicate with the village and get more feedback and more input as growth happens.
Thank you. Lowell?
Well, I believe strongly in one-on-one conversations with people, whether I'm out for a walk in the neighborhood or going to a senior group meeting or going to a athletic event or an event at the school. There's many opportunities for board members to communicate with people, and committees themselves bring a lot to the board in a way of communication, because you have a cross-section of people on all these different committees, and that's another way. So the publications that they have here in the village are great. I think they're getting the word out, and the Channel 9 is great. That's a good communicator. So there's it's just an ongoing process. So.
Thank you. Question 7. Starting with Hillary. What does public service mean to you?
Public service to me, wow, this is a great question, means being able to give back and acknowledge that nothing that you have, whether it be in your home, in your community, is done by solely one person, right? Acknowledging that public works and utilities in and of itself is, I would say, the only department that truly touches every single person in this village. And so as a public servant thinking, wow, look at all of the people that are involved in me simply washing dishes, right? Taking a step back and realizing, okay, there are a lot of people that make McFarland the way it is. And what do you love about this? What made you want to live here? You're walking the sidewalks, you're going to parks, you're enjoying the views. We have tremendous amount of natural resources and fun things to do in McFarland. So how am I going to give back, right? We utilize the library, we utilize this, but now it's my turn, right? I need to make sure to maintain this, to show my support, to allow, things like this to continue, to make sure that I'm doing my part to allow other community members that maybe don't have the time or the resources to continue this great village of McFarland, the great opportunities that it provides everyone. So public service means, to me, doing the right thing and being a voice for those that aren't always able to speak at the table.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Public service to me, it means giving back to my community. It means being able to dedicate and give my time to make things happen in our community. Short answer.
Lowell?
Public service is, I think a great thing. It's a way of giving back to the community and working for what's good, for the common good, for the welfare of all. I enjoy it. I had to enjoy it if I served on these other boards in the lengths of time that I did. And it's a learning experience as well. I believe that there's so many, opinions and perceptions that people can share, and I think it's just a good thing to do, public service.
Thank you. Luke?
I also think this, public service is largely about a few things. It's giving back to the community. When my kids were younger, I have 2 teenagers now, but when they were younger, running around everywhere, going to sporting events, going to practices, going to music events, I felt like I didn't have the time, and it was something I wanted to do. And now that I do have the time, they're a little bit older, and they still want to spend time with me, but I admit it's much less than it was. I feel like I have a little bit more of that time, and I can use that now to help give back to the community. And I also think it's about representing and lifting up voices, people that either aren't heard or can't be heard because they can't be here. They have those obligations that I was talking about that I felt that I had and couldn't participate. So understanding them, listening to them, and then bringing that and representing them at the meetings, I think, is also very important.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Question 8. Stephanie, we'll start with you. Why should we vote for you?
First, I guess I've been on the village board for a long time. I bring a lot of history here, and I think that it's a constant learning of how things work, how things how things have been, how things pass, and I bring a unique perspective to them because I've been here for so long. I also I feel like I have a lot of strengths in my ability to communicate and as well as represent a pretty strong demographic in McFarland. So I'm proud of the service that I've done, and I'm honored to continue to serve.
Thank you. Lowell?
Well, voting is a basic fundamental of our democracy, and I look here and we have a democracy here. We have an open forum. We have attendees, and it's all part of it. It's the American way. And, it's a lot of people have sacrificed, made great sacrifices to keep our democracy free and for the opportunity for just the people to vote and vote their convictions, whatever that may be. And so voting is very important.
Luke?
As I mentioned before, I've been a part of this community for the past 20 years, really ever since I graduated from the UW-Madison. I think I'm a very open-minded person. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I love facts. So I love to dig in and understand the problem, get the different viewpoints, and try and take all that in and synthesize, my opinion and my viewpoint, and to bring that back. I'm not afraid to raise my own voice, raise that up, and give my opinions when I feel they're needed. And I think that is something I will bring to this board, to be even and open-minded and fact-based in my decision-making.
Thank you. Hillary?
Why should you vote for me? April 4th, everyone. Well, I find myself someone that is definitely dedicated. If I am going to volunteer, sign up, start a career, I do it to the very best of my ability, and I'm never done trying to be a better person than I was the day before. I believe that I collaborate well. I listen to everyone else's perspectives, even if I don't agree. I think that's really important, to be able to set your ego aside and be able to hear everyone out. I think that's very, very important as a public servant. Listening. I definitely lead with, on my day-to-day routines, I lead with empathy and love. I think that is something that, to be someone of public service, you have to have empathy and love for the people in your community. And I think that goes hand in hand with why you should vote for me, for sure. But otherwise, also, I love to read. I love to learn. But I also know that I'm not someone that likes to learn in a silo. I want to learn from the people I'm serving with. I want to learn from my community members. I want to collaborate with community members. What can we do as a team to make this better, whether it's with the village in this village trustee role, or helping raise money for a great family that needs help. So I think being able to embrace love, empathy, dedication, and preparation. When I am a chairperson or any meeting, you'll see me. I have my binder. I've got everything laid out. I do my homework. I don't just show up and see the agenda at the first time. So it's a lot of preparation, and I take pride in that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Lost my order. Sorry. All right, now is the time for audience members to submit questions. Again, we encourage attendees and viewers to submit questions to candidates. For our live at-home viewers, please submit questions to www.mcfarland.wi.us/candidate questions, or scan the QR code that's found on the screen. For those who are here in person, if you haven't already done so, you may submit online or use the note cards that are below your chairs. Again, I would say, as a reminder, the questions you submit should be issue-based and will be reviewed before asking the candidates. We will not accept questions that may be targeted towards one candidate, are partisan, vulgar, inappropriate, et cetera, et cetera. The current time is about 11:50 a.m., so we got about an hour potentially for this segment. Closing remarks will begin at 12:50 when we get to that point. I got a few questions to get started. I would say there are 10 in total that are submitted. So 10 times 4 times 2, we'll work through it as we are able. I'll get started with the first question, and then we will we'll work through the next hour or time that's allotted as we have. So got a new order here. Lowell, you'll go first in this capacity, and then if there are other questions from people online, we'll catch up with those as we go. So I will go through these in order, with the exception there are a few that are centered around one thing. So I'll try to keep those together because they kind of go along the same theme. But first question, Lowell, from the submitted. What do you see are the top 2 diversity, equity, and inclusion agendas priorities for the village?
diversity, equity and inclusion.
Yes.
Well, I had training in that when I was on the technical college board, and that's been around. It's so important for growth in a community and for those new people coming in, and it just you have to be passionate, understanding to all people, and include all people. So yes, it's very important.
Thank you. Luke?
Yeah, I think the top two things as far as DEI in the village right now. One I mentioned earlier, I feel like we should have a more formal process to consider DEI and what that means in any of our major financial decisions in the village. And number two, last year there was a position approved for a DEI administrator in the village, and I think that as quickly and thoroughly as we can, we need to use the money that is set aside to help define that position, which I believe we're currently starting, and then to turn around and create the position description and get that position filled.
Thank you. Hillary?
Top two DEI initiatives. I would say, first of all, we've done a really nice job so far with our new HR generalist, looking through policies and procedures and making sure that they are equitable for every staff that comes through the Village of McFarland. I would like to continue that. Going along with what Luke said about the DEI position, I think that position could definitely help in a number of ways. Seeing holes that myself, someone that might not have looked at as someone of diverse. Maybe I'm more of the general population of McFarland, so I have my my blind spots for sure. So having someone that might be able to point out those blind spots to make sure that we are including everyone, that everyone does feel that they belong in our community, and that they're celebrated in our community, that differences are celebrated. Just like finding commonalities between each other, we should also be celebrating differences and learning from one another. I think that goes back to that communication. Sometimes we fear things that we don't know or don't understand, and so if we can bring everyone together and break those barriers, I think that would be a wonderful way, and so this position could definitely help us do that. So I would say policies and procedures, and then again, helping us find those blind spots that we may have as a community as a whole.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I think two things. When we talk about staffing, I think we have to make sure that we are using the lens of a DEI lens. We need to recruit, hire, train, maintain a diverse workforce. That's number one priority. But I also need to point out something when I talk about DEI as the chair of the DEI committee. DEI encompasses so many things. It's not just about race. It's about our senior population, women in our population, the LGBTQ population, religious, mobility issues, special needs, visual, hearing impaired. These are all things that are included in our DEI initiatives. And I think about when we plan things, just simple things that we plan, a community center, a public safety center, a beach, a park, whatever it is that we're planning, are we making sure that we have made that welcoming to people of all abilities and communities and everything that we do? And there's so much to DEI. And sometimes I think people get caught up on just like, oh, it's just a Black Lives Matter issue. And it's not. That's a part of it. That's a component of it. But there's so much more to that. And I think about, as we develop the East Side Plan, are we making sure that we're providing access for people as we put our rooms together for our public meetings? Is there access here for people who are visually impaired or hearing impaired? all these things. If you want to go to the beach in McFarland, are you going to be able to access it if you're in a wheelchair? How are we looking at all of these things? And that's part of DEI. So I think DEI has to be a part of everything that we do, and we need to make sure that we're looking at everything we do with that lens.
Thank you. Luke, you're up for the next question. I would say the next 3 questions are community center related, just to kind of give you a feel for that. I try to consolidate these. They're different questions, but related to that topic. So, Luke, first up, in the development of a community center, how do you balance the needs of all interested parties, i.e. general public, village staff, seniors, and other parties? How do you balance all of those interested parties?
I think it starts again with communication, right? First, we need to understand what the interested parties want from the community center. I know that we have had a poll that went out. I think it got fairly low response rate, but going out and talking to people, having informational meetings to understand what they need is the first step. The second step of that is, again, looking back at some of the core values that we want in McFarland and using those to help drive our decisions, right? Understanding what are we trying to grow, where are we trying to grow, what is that 5-year plan, what is that 10-year plan, going back to some of those things that we have put together and that we've given ourselves as guardrails and guidelines on how we do the things that we want to do in the village. So to me, those are the 2 most important things, getting as many of those opinions as we can, and then really understanding what the vision is for the village and using that to help drive how and what we create.
That's a great question. I like being on the village board isn't enough. I also volunteered to be on the library strategic planning committee, and it's been very interesting because it provides. Right now, we're talking about all of the things that, as a community member in McFarland, what do you utilize in McFarland? What are the things that you are very happy that McFarland has to offer? And then where do we go outside of McFarland? What are some things we don't have? And so I think having that, thinking about what we don't have in McFarland, why do we go to Monona for something? Why do we go to Madison for something? I think is really key to think about, right? It's great to think, oh, we have a community center, these are the things I want to see, but thinking about what takes people outside of McFarland and what can we do where we can keep people in-house. I know McFarland is now bigger than Monona, right? And I definitely think that just being on the library strategic planning committee, I've heard the same thing that Luke said about we have this great community, but we don't have that recreational piece for kids. It comes through the school district, which is great. But if we have a community center, what can we do? Not necessarily the center itself, but what can we offer for those people that are looking for that public parks and rec things that Monona has. So we're not having our village members leave McFarland. So what can we do to keep people here? Definitely informational meetings, continuing to try to get that communication so clear and so inviting that everyone wants to have their voice heard. I think that's really, really, really important when we're talking about spending a lot of money for a community center, that we do it right, we do it well, and again, efficiently and effectively is really, really important. So listening very well and making sure we're getting the needs met from our community members. Sorry, I went over. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All good. Stephanie.
I first and foremost, I think when you create a community center, we understand that our village government and access to our village government is going to be in this building as well. This is where you would come to pay your taxes. This is where you'll come to drop off your water bill. This is where you'll come to get a dog license or vote. All those things. So those things we have to balance that between some of the things that we think we might want to offer, but we have to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the village and access and ability for people to come here easily, come in, pay their whatever they need to do, whatever they need to see the administrative staff for, that they have access to that, and that they can do that. So first and foremost, that has to be our priority, is to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the staff that's here, and then meeting the needs of the community that needs to use those services and resources. And then I think we have to balance what can we afford? I mean, what are we looking at? What can we afford to do? In all of our dreams, we would love to have recreational programs and things like that. But is that something that we could do right now? Is that realistic for us, or is that something that we need to build the building and create and make modifications to the building with maybe, hey, that we could maybe leave this open to do something in our future, but we can afford this right now. So it's a balancing act for sure, and I think that we have to just do our best to make sure that we are not planning things that we can't sustain.
Thank you. Lowell?
Well, it's important that this building, has all the offices here for the different business that the community members need to conduct here. But it does have potential for all ages, and I've seen the drawings and the sketchings of it, and 1-story, 2-story. Yeah, there's a cost to it, everything, and planning is, again, the main issue here as far as what's needed now and what may be needed just down the road a little bit. But it's definitely should be the center for the community and the activities that need to be both for the young and the seniors and all ages in between.
Thank you. Lou? Sorry, started with Lou.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't have them on the screen, so, and I should also say, if I need to repeat something, just let me know, because these aren't pre-prepared. Okay, next question. Hillary, I'll start with you. Please describe your vision for the future of the McFarland Youth Center.
oh, this is a good question. Obviously, the youth center would be a part of the community center, and the Village of McFarland will be taking on the youth center soon. My ideal vision of the youth center is that it is something that the library has a say in. I think that the librarians and the library board and they have definitely a pulse on the youth and the things that are engaging. I also think making sure that the youth center has been run very well in all of these years, and that we make sure that we have the people that have been running it have a say in how now it's run via Village. So personally, I have a lot of ideas for the youth center, but again, I'm not someone that has run the youth center. Being an educator, I have some great ideas, but I would say I would like to collect all ideas from people, and definitely those kids that go there, right? Student voices are so important as well. The youth is going to be using this. So as adults, we might have some great ideas, but really listening to the voices of those that will be using it, definitely.
Thank you. Stephanie?
My answer very, very similar to that. I think we would have to engage the youth that use that center as to what are their needs and how will we fit that into our planning and the growth of the community center. We would just have to make sure that we're using that feedback as an important component to what we do.
Lowell?
Well, I think working with the library and incorporating their program with whatever programs they would have here at the community center for the youth, that has to be done. You have to coordinate that and see really what's needed and what the young people are looking for and desiring in a center for the youth. So,
Thank you. Lou?
Yeah, I do think the same that coordination with the library is probably paramount importance, because they do run a very good program right now and they get great participation. So understanding what they're doing and what else they could do with an expanded partnership and expanded space, it would be very interesting to hear. Also, I think hearing from those who visit and use the youth center now is absolutely important. I would also be very interested in understanding from those that don't use the youth center, why not? Like, what is it that it's missing? What is it that is not pulling them over there for kids that would have that available but are not currently using that resource? I think that's another large piece of feedback that we could use to help shape what we want to do with the youth center.
All right, thank you. Next question. This will take me a little bit to read, so if I need to repeat anything, just let me know. Recently, the requirement to go to referendum on borrowing that equals or exceeds 1% of the village's equalized value, with a few exceptions, was eliminated. Discussion regarding a community center are currently taking place. Do you believe the question of borrowing for a community center should be brought forward to the citizens of McFarland as a referendum question? Stephanie, you'll go first, but if anyone needs me to repeat that, just let me know.
Yeah, I was actually a part of the vote for the referendum, and I was also a part of the vote to remove the referendum. I think the question of borrowing is something that we do need to include village input from, but I also feel that there were some limitations to that referendum that didn't allow us to give us the freedom and flexibility that we needed to plan, as well as relying on the fact that we are voted in as officials to make some of those decisions. And it's a tough one because, again, I was part of both of those issues. I do think that we have a lot more work to do when it comes to planning the community center, and we have a lot more work to do as far as how we're gonna pay for it, and we're gonna call on the community to help us figure that out.
Thank you. Well,
Well, being on a school board, I know what referendums are, and I would say that, yes, there is at times a need for a referendum. It depends upon the amount and of money being spent on whatever project. But again, I do believe in referendums, and I do believe that advisory referendums, something that'll show direction to the board. I don't believe in blank checks, and I don't believe that you can plan, but again, things change, and so yes, I believe at times and for certain reasons, referendums are all right.
Luke?
Yeah, so, I had mentioned before that I'd like to make fact-based decisions. So this is one where I think I want to dig in more and understand some of the board's reasoning for removing the referendum. I understand why it was put in place years ago, and then it was raised recently and now removed. But, in terms of understanding what the community wants, I feel like it comes back to communication again, and that we need to make sure that we're getting as many voices heard as we can. A referendum is one way to do that, but also, looking at a communication plan to get more people involved, I think will help give that board some more direction in real time than it would coming up once a year or once every 2 or 3 years on a referendum.
Thank you. Hillary?
I definitely think referendums have their place. And along with Luke, I don't feel that I have enough information to make a sound answer. But what I will say is that there are financial implications to the wants from our community members. So it goes back to communication with those community members. If you want a community center and you want all of these things, there will be financial implications. So making sure that it's very clear that we can't turn it into Disney World unless you're going to pay for Disney World. So I think it's fun to talk about all the things that we want to see in the village, but then there are, Debbie Downer, it's going to cost money. So making sure we have that communication, like, what would you like to see? But again, it is going to cost money. And so referendums definitely play a role in that. I think, again, we need to remember the job of a trustee is really policy and procedure direction. We are policy makers. We are not the person that does the budget. We might approve the budget. We might have questions, but that is not all of our backgrounds. And so again, I would defer to staff and rely on staff to make those educated decisions, and we would then have communication and go from there.
Yeah. Okay, the next question, go back to the top of how we started this, so Lowell, you'll be up next. Describe your vision and support for the village and school district collaborative partnership to the benefit of all stakeholders.
Well, that's a basic thing for the school board, or excuse me, school district to share ideas with the village, and the village to meet and move forward what the needs are and what can be done to improve communications between the two. And they are both separate entities, and they both come from a different direction, but it's education. I mean, McFarland's got a great school district, and I'm so proud that my grandchildren could go through it. And basically, communication, I believe, is what's important.
Yeah, I think the collaboration between the village and school district is paramount. The school district has very good involvement from all levels, the staff, the parents, the students. Being able to carry that forward and bring those ideas forward and work with the village to understand that is a very good thing. I think they also, because of the way the school works and the school district works, they have a very good, easy way to communicate with all of the parents and guardians at the school. And as we talk about communication and being able to reach more people, just that fact alone, the more that the village does with the school board, the more people we will be able to reach because of it.
Hillary?
Well, this is definitely something that I'm very excited about, and I think we have a really good start with collaboration with the school district. I think the one thing that I myself personally, when I was on the DEI committee, I'm also on MEP, and when MEP first started, MEP is McFarland Equity Project, we had subcommittees, and I was on the education committee. And what was really great about that is because I was on the DEI committee for the village, and then I was on the McFarland Equity Project, in the education, is that I was able to be a bridge to talking to administrators and the village, so that we weren't duplicating efforts, right? We have so many valuable community members and with so many skills and so many different viewpoints and perspectives that we are able to use all of the lenses from all of both school district and village to really make some good change and not replicate things, so we're also able to save money. For instance, we just had a mental health presentation that was actually from the village. The village contributed and the school district, and it was beautiful to see that that collaboration where everyone realized that it's important for the community members, but it's also important for the school district. And we all were able to gain education through this great presentation that was supported by both sides. And I think if we continue to do that, it will be money saving, and it will be only educational purposes for every single person in our community, where I said breaking down those barriers and collaborating, communicating, and just encompassing empathy and love as a village. So I'm all for that partnership.
Thank you. Stephanie?
I think I view it a little differently, and I think it's because I've been on the village board for a long time. I've always been a pretty strong supporter of seeing the differences. We are two separate entities. We are the village. Our footprint is very different than the school's footprint. The school's footprint is much larger. I think there's some great opportunities for the village and the school to collaborate together. I love the fact that there is a joint committee working together through some of the DEI issues. Those are great things. I think the thing that concerns me is that sometimes things might happen at the school level, and people don't see the difference between the school and the village, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, but this happened in class, and why isn't the village doing anything about it? Well, the village has nothing to do with that, and that's something that we have to make sure that we keep that thin line there that says we are not the school district, we're the village, and we do things within the village. It doesn't mean that I don't support collaborative efforts, because I do. It just means that I feel like we have to make sure that there is some distinction between those two entities in certain things that we do, that people are not looking to the village to do something when it really is a school issue. There are a couple things, again, like DEI issues in the presentation we had last week were great collaborative efforts. Land acknowledgement is another one that will be a part of this fall, that the school and the village is working together. Those are great opportunities for the school and the village to collaborate. I don't know that it's appropriate in all cases, though.
Thank you. Luke, you're up for the next question. Do you feel it is appropriate to use utility funds to pay for a non-utility position because other revenue sources are not available?
I think I would need to understand more about the process of how that works. I'll give you my initial reaction, I guess. My initial reaction is that that revenue streams for the village in general could be used for multiple positions, depending on how the revenue is coming in. But again, I would love to understand more about that in particular to give a better answer.
Hillary?
I don't think this is a yes or no response. I think that it's a situational response. And I, again, will say that as a village board trustee, the job is to really rely on the staff that work 40 hours a week, that went, to universities to understand budgeting, to know how to be very creative with how to make sure that the community members get all the things that they do want, because as we all know that the things that we're trying to accomplish throughout the budget are things that we have heard from constituents that they do want to see happen in McFarland. And so I think there are times where you need to be creative to make sure that things are can go through fruition. So I would say it's definitely situational, and I would always rely on staff because that is not something that I myself am well versed in. So I would always seek someone that knows a lot more before I would ever be able to make that decision on my own.
Thank you. Stephanie?
I think to understand that answer, to understand that question, you have to understand budgeting. And I think you have to understand that a lot of positions within the village, the actual funding sources, it could be separated over multiple areas in the village. So if you look at, salaries, if you look at that, you may see someone that impacts all of these other areas. So these line items in the budget are pulled from many different sources. So the answer is, I think that isn't uncommon for certain roles that impact. You have an HR position. That HR position is HR over the entire, 75 employees. So it's going to come from all different parts of the budget, and including the utility budget, if that's people that monitor that, So the answer is complicated. The answer is that there's a lot more to that than what it appears to be. It's just, yes, I don't think it's an uncommon thing to have salaries come from all different components of the budget.
Lowell?
Well, I agree that it's very complicated and complex, the budgeting process, and the board needs to look to the bottom line, needs to look to the business manager and also the different departments that are drawing up the budget. But I'm not familiar with basically what all took place and at different times in the budgeting and with the board. So I just would say I'd like to know more.
Thank you. Hillary, we'll start with you on this question. This will take me a minute to read. One of the most important elements of village government is its committee structure. Village boards have indicated their desire to increase citizen engagement in local government. Does eliminating committees, combining committees, limiting the number of citizens on a committee, and creating two committees without citizen membership promote citizen engagement in local government?
I would like you to read it again.
I can if you
So I think one thing that I know I've seen change in is community or committee structure and how committees are run. And I think that there's definitely been improvement in that. I think that creating committees without having committee members is definitely really tricky. And I think, yes, there was a policy where people could, I think you could serve on two committees, and then that was taken to now one. I wasn't a part of the village board when that was passed. But I do see that to be an issue because when you don't have people on committees, committees can't be successful. Just our last public safety committee meeting, we almost didn't make quorum. And that's a very scary situation when we're supposed to be collaborating and talking about TRHs and, policies and procedures on that. And that's a very serious concept and a very serious topic that affects our community members. So I definitely think that potentially going back to allowing, people to serve on more than one committee should be looked at. We need more involvement. And again, it goes back to that communication aspect. Showing people, being a part of a committee isn't as much of a time commitment as you might think. Being able to, instead of just advertising, oh, come and join this committee, maybe saying this is how many hours, maybe a month you would have to put effort into. It's planning for an agenda, maybe average about 3 hours, and then maybe the meeting is about 2. So 5 hours a month. That might not look so bad if you understood what a committee actually looks like. So again, it's that education piece. We want your voice. We want you to be a part of committees so that committees can actually get things done and done well. I don't know if I answered it because that was a lot of parts, but thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Stephanie?
That was like 10 questions in one.
Right.
By the way. So first and foremost, I think what I hear from that question is one question that I think is an important answer. I don't think we should ever limit the number of committees that people are on. If you want to be on 5 committees and you're educated and have that ability to have positive input, then you should be on those committees. That's the gist of that piece of it. I also feel like there are a couple things. When you're on a committee and you end up feeling like I'm just a yes, just to say yes, and you're not really contributing to that, then I think you have to look at committee structure and say, are people really contributing to this? Is this really the kind of committee that we want? Or is this being creative and utilizing the people that are here, giving their hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever time it is? Are we making sure that we're just using them and we're just not a rubber stamp committee that says, yep, that's what we do? So I think we have to look at committee structure and make sure that we're utilizing, appreciating the people that do come to the committees, and we're valuing their time. It's not just they're just wasting an hour of their life. So that piece of it, I think we need to look at that. I do think there are some times, especially when there maybe a committee that I'll finance for that. I will talk about finance for a minute. We had a finance committee, and then we didn't have a finance committee, and we haven't had one, and we're now creating a new finance committee. I do believe once this gets formulated with input from staff and the village board members that are on it, I do believe that's something we will look at to bring in community members and maybe structure that differently. I think we don't have an agenda right now or know exactly where our agenda is going to go. So I wouldn't want to involve anybody at this point to waste their time at this point. I think anybody at any time can always communicate to any member of the village board and say, hey, this is what I think, and I think I'm open to all of that. I think that there are certain times and places where creating a committee might take some behind-the-scenes work before it's open to the public.
Thank you.
Was my time up?
A little long.
Sorry.
It's okay. We'll take 10 seconds off your next one.
All right.
Lowell?
You can have 10 seconds.
Okay.
Committees are important, but if there's a similar issue or a common thread there, I think they should be combined. And I think that there can be more than, a member can be on more than one committee if they desire. Like you say, like you were just saying, that committees, how important is this committee that we're thinking about having? And can it combine the work to another committee? And just encourage people to join and be on committees, but how many committees? That's the question too.
Luke?
Yeah, this one's actually kind of close to my heart because I ran into this issue. I actually wanted to be on more than one committee and ended up in a position where I was on the Parks and Rec, or designated to the Parks and Rec committee, which I love. So I'm all for letting people be on more than one committee. I think there's a balance there too, like everything. We want to make sure we don't have 5 committees that are composed of the same group of people, right? We want to make sure that we have that diversity of opinion and voice from the community. And also, you know, it's an experiment, right? Like we make changes, we plan for it, we make the change, we see how we did, we learn from it, and then we start over, right? And we plan again, and we make another change. And so incrementally, I think things are getting better. The decisions that were made, we review, and if we feel like they need to be changed, we change them. So, you know, this is understanding the current setup and the committee structure, I think is just another learning opportunity for us as we go.
You. Let's see, Stephanie, we'll start with you here. Do you believe it is sound practice to increase the annual budget for items that are not clearly defined and have not been vetted by a committee or committee of jurisdiction? Sorry, let me read that one more time. Do you believe it is sound practice to increase the annual budget for items that are not clearly defined and have not been vetted by a committee of jurisdiction?
I think there's a time and a place for that. I think that there are certain things, I'm imagining that our conversation right now is about adding a DEI position. And I think there are many times where we make decisions as a board that to add something to our budget, and you know, we haven't fully vetted it. I don't know how you would take something like this particular position and vet it with a DEI committee. I think there's a lot of work to be done. I don't know that it's going to happen this year. I don't know, but I think that by putting it in the budget, it forces us to do that work. And I think in this particular case, it was an appropriate time for us to make that decision, put it in the budget, and now we have to do the work. May not end up the way we thought, but we have to do the work.
Well,
Allocating or inserting things into the budget, it has to be a very a careful study on it and make sure that when there's positions created, that there's been the proper planning and going forward, so that all the ducks are in a row as far as the financing of the position or whatever it may be. So it's a delicate issue all the way around, and budgeting is a big thing for boards. That's one next to policy and procedures. The budget is another major point of interest.
Thank you. Luke?
Yeah, I think, you know, I would agree that there is potentially a time and place for that if it's done responsibly. And in this case, you know, I know, Stephanie, you mentioned the DEI position. I think the tack that the board took to reduce the amount in the budget and then use that reduced amount to do due diligence about what they wanted the position to do and define it well, and then go after hiring a person and bringing them into the position, I think that was a responsible way to add it into the budget. So in this particular case, you know, it's case by case on what those facts are and why we're doing it. But I think it was right.
Hillary.
I would have to agree with everyone that has spoken so far. I think that it's always a case-by-case situation. I think one thing that I always just want to revert back to is that Stephanie talked about diversity. Diversity is not just racial, it's not just ethnic, it's not just cultural backgrounds, it is lifestyles, experiences, abilities, gender, age, religious attributes that are maybe religious or experiential, socioeconomic, right? It encompasses everything. And I think that in this case, we talk about all of these issues with the village, right? We talk about how we maybe need to focus on communication. Well, communication can definitely be affected by, are we focusing on that things, are they equitable? Are we inclusive? If we're not inclusive, our communication is going to be lacking. So again, it brings in the ability to have someone be able to look at how, what are our downfalls? I mean, we did have an equity audit, and there are holes. We talk about the walkability score for seniors, being able to get places. All of that is equity. All of that is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so I think if we could just get rid of that racial piece of it, yes, that's definitely a big piece of it. If we just get, all of those things, LGBTQIA plus community is in McFarland. We do have different races in McFarland. We do have people that don't just speak English in McFarland. How are we communicating? How are we inviting if we only have, a Christmas tree or a Christmas wreath in the village, entryway? It's not. So we can talk about communication, we can talk about collaboration, but if people don't feel like they're represented or celebrated, we're lacking. We're not going to have that. So I do think that in this particular case, it was a necessity. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, two more to go from the submitted questions I have. We'll go back to the top here, which is Lowell. Lowell, in the past few years, the village has added positions at a higher rate, percentage-wise, than the increase in population. Do you believe all this hiring is warranted? And if not, what positions would you suggest eliminating?
Well, I almost would have to pass on this. I don't know the history really about the hiring and the different departments, but that's an issue that the board definitely should be looking at and questioning what's essential, what's necessary, and so forth. But there is growth here, and we have a good base here for expanding public services, and I think they do a great job, the different departments that provide services for the community. So it's just another closely scrutinized and looked at subject, hiring and job positions.
Thank you. Luke?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that, right? The first part of it, hiring faster than the village is growing. I think that depends on how you look at it. We may be hiring faster when you look at it per capita, but are we hiring faster than what we need and what services we're trying to provide? We may be trying to provide more for the people we already have, and to do that, we might need to hire people. I would also say that, following some of the recommendations of the village administration and the staff, by all means, we're here to look at the budget, to question it, to poke holes and see if there's any water that starts coming out. But at the end of the day, we have some very intelligent people, some professionals that are good at their jobs and the places that they've been hired into here. And I think that if they're making those recommendations, we need to take that seriously and to understand why we want to add those positions.
Hillary?
I think there's a difference between being proactive and reactive. And I think anytime you think about eliminating positions, you have to look at the It's not just a number. We are a community. We don't have, I think, 75 employees-ish. That's not a lot. So, you see a face in the community that would now not have a position, not have a job. I think it always goes back to that communication. And if you're not communicating with the staff of the Village of McFarland and asking them what their needs are, we're doing everything a disservice to how well our village is run. So I would say always going back to asking staff what they need, what their needs are, what needs aren't being met, what is lacking, and I think eliminating positions is just a really, I would say, almost last resort in many ways, because it's impactful on our community in more than just one way.
Stephanie.
I would not eliminate any positions. I think that we've made pretty responsible choices as far as increasing areas where we felt that there was need, not only today, but we feel that there will be need in the future. And I think it's important. It takes a long time to recruit, hire, train, and monitor employees. And I think it was important for us to put some of those in place for our growth of our community.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, last question that I have in front of me here. Luke, you will begin. This will take a second to read. Village trustees are duly elected by the citizens of McFarland to serve on the village board and committees. Village ordinance indicates that all trustees shall serve on at least one standing committee. Village board confirms the appointment of trustees to committees. Do you believe that removing a trustee from all committees was in keeping with the voters of McFarland and the will of the village board?
It's a good question. It's complicated. I think that when it comes to removing people from committees, again, it's a case-by-case basis. I don't have all the details and the facts. I have certainly heard many things. I'm sure everybody in the room has. But I don't have all the facts on both sides to say whether or not this was justified in this case. But what I will say is that right now that power lies with the president of the board. I think she made a decision that she felt was right for what was needed at the time. And again, this is a learning opportunity. We understand what went right, what went wrong, and we use that information to go forward and make a as good or better decision next time.
Thank you. Hillary?
I think that President Clow made a decision, and that wasn't anyone else's decision on the board to make. I think that there are certain circumstances where that might need to happen. I don't really have anything else to say about that.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Again, I think this is a very isolated incident. It's unfortunate that it happened at all. I think that it was within the power of the village president to make that decision based on the data that she was given. I wouldn't have wanted to be her at the time. Right. That was a tough decision, and I have to support that the way it's written, that it is at her discretion at that point, based on the information that she had, that she had to make the best decision for the health of the village.
Lowell.
Well, that'd be my question. Was it a correct decision to be made under the circumstances? I don't have all the facts or all the information, but when a person's on a committee and been assigned that committee and then to be taken off, what was the discussion? What was the board president to make this decision was rested solely apparently with her. So there must be processes and procedures in place. So once again, I would say I am not real familiar with the incident that took place.
Thank you. Okay, we do not have any additional questions at this time, so thank you everybody for the questions that have been submitted. We'll now move on to closing statements. We're going to go back to ballot order, so we'll start with you, Stephanie. Please provide any closing remarks, final statements, or other topics of interest you wish to share at this time.
Okay. Again, thank you very much for supporting me through all these years. I am honored to be on the village board. I had no idea that I would be on the village board for this long, but I love every minute of it. I'm excited to be a part of it. I am so thankful and proud of the work that we've done, and there's so much more work to be done, and I feel like I bring a great dynamic to that group to as we move forward. So I look forward to your support as we move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Lowell?
Well, I want to say thank you again for the opportunity to be a part of this forum, and if elected, I'd look forward to serving and being a part of the board and communicating and finding consensus on the different issues and moving forward, because that's what we have to do. We have to move into the future. And as I say, McFarland's a great community, great schools, just all around a great place to live. And I look to it as a responsibility, but yet an opportunity to give back to the community. And being a retired senior, I think I bring that to the board, and maybe I add balance to the board. And that's all I can say is thank you, and looking forward to the future.
Thanks, Lowell. Luke?
Yeah, first of all, just thank you. I'm really happy and proud to be a part of this process. It's exciting to be a part of how democracy works. That's how I feel right now. That's what this is, and being on the ballot and being able to take part and let people know my thoughts and why I feel I could contribute to the village and to the board. Just to list a few things that I had mentioned along the way. I do run a small business, a small consulting business. And so I have some of that experience under my belt as well, and can bring that to the board. I've worked in various manufacturing and service industry businesses over the last 25 years, and I have a strong financial background. I think that will help me in understanding and being able to work through the budget. And I think, meeting people where they're at is a really big thing about the communication, understanding where people are. Again, diverse groups of people that have needs, meeting them where they're at and understanding and hearing them and bringing that back to the board and making sure that they're echoed and their voices are lifted. Because, a lot of us on the board today on this panel today talked about DEI and why it's important. And I think one of the things that I didn't say that I want to is it's not just important for the people that are already in our village. I think what we do now and what we set up now allows us to show that to the rest of the world and helps us to bring even more diversity of opinions and ideas into the village. And I think that is really important too. It's what we're building toward, not just where we're at and what we're trying to do for the people that are here now that we're already helping. Thank you. April 4th. Don't forget to go vote April 4th.
Thank you. Hillary?
First of all, I want to just say thank you for those of you that showed up. I think that you are here and you care, and I think that is something that is excellent and what we want to maintain and encourage more people to do so. Thank you, Matt, for being the moderator, and Stephanie in communications and technology department for setting all this up. Thank you for all of you. I've enjoyed listening to you and getting to know you, Lowell, especially, so thank you. I think the one thing that I can take away from just the appointment of being a village board trustee is it is a humbling experience. It is a learning experience. It definitely got me out of my comfort zone many times. But I will say, if it doesn't scare you, it's not worth doing. And I've definitely been scared in a good way. And I hope that I can continue to be a part of this board and see things through. I want to make sure that I can amplify all voices in our community, and that I can continue to listen to everyone and learn from all of the people on the board and collaborate with everyone regardless of how we feel, how we stand on certain viewpoints. I think it's so important to listen to all, because in the end, everyone in McFarland can grow and learn together, and that creates an awesome ripple effect throughout Dane County and Wisconsin as a whole. So we have great community members. We can make an impact on the whole state of Wisconsin, and I don't even take that lightly. I think it's very serious that we are all really good people in the village of McFarland, and we can all work together and become a model and do some good in this world. So thank you.
Very nice. Thank you to the candidates for participating in the forum and to the communication technology staff for broadcasting this event. Again, people can find the recording available on demand via www.mcfarlandcablechannel.com and or youtube.com/McFarlandCable. Please don't forget, as was mentioned, Election Day is scheduled for Tuesday, April 4th. Polls will be open at the Municipal Center right here in this room, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. On Tuesday, April 4th. By-mail voting begins this Tuesday, March 14th. In-person absentee in the office across the hall will begin on Tuesday, March 21st. Please consult the website at www.mcfarland.wi.us/elections for more information. Again, thank you, everybody, our candidates, people in attendance for participating today. Please have a nice rest of your weekend.